Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna make these leather pants. So in this video I'm not only going to show you how to make these pants in particular, which might differ a little bit from normal pants as they have a slit in the leg, but I'm also going to give you tips and tricks on how to work with leather, and false leather in this case in particular. So if you're interested in that, just keep on watching. And jumping right into it, let's actually talk about materials, because it's very important to use the right material for your project, in leatherworks especially. So if we're talking about thickness, everything that is for clothes, for movement, like a leather jacket, pants, anything like that, you don't want to get too thick. So this here, if you see this right there, this is very, very thin material. See how it moves? You want the material to move like this. If you want to have thicker material in parts of your garment, you're going to put interfacing on it, but you don't want to have anything that is a lot thicker than this. This is probably the thickest I would go for a leather jacket. This is already the max, I would say. Now, I already put interfacing on this one because I am planning on making that leather jacket that I was talking about, and I will be using this material right here. This is actually PVC and a little bit of polyester, so also false leather, and I put interfacing on it so that it stabilizes it a bit, and this is double the thickness, I would say, of the leather that I will be using for the pants. And then there are multiple other thicknesses, obviously. It goes from like the thinnest to the thickest, to be honest. And this right here, this is real leather. This is going to make hard shell bags like this one. This is the bag I made out of this leather, and this is some hard shell bag. You see that, how it holds up its shape? If you want something like this, obviously you don't necessarily use this for clothing items, you use this for accessory items. You can go up to like 2 millimeters thickness. This is actually the leather right here. It's about 2 millimeters thick, and you'll end up having a result like this, a hard shell 3D object. Now let's talk about the thread that it will be using. So I have two different kinds of threads right here. This one is the one that I am using on normal clothes. It's the normal all-rounder thread that you know and love. And this one might not be the best option for leather because it is rather thin. This one right here is a thicker thread that is typically used for leatherworks and or denim or whatever else of thicker material that might need a little bit of a thicker thread to hold everything together. Now you can see right here that it actually shows up pretty well. If I give you some look onto the bag that I made, you can see right here I was using the thicker thread, and it actually shows up really, really nicely, and it makes an overall really nice look on the leather. Now also, obviously, the stitch distance is also much bigger than usually. You can use, by the way, this thicker thread on a normal machine. That is no problem. You can also work with leather on a normal machine. You do not need a leather machine for this. Typically, at least not for clothing garments, as they are moving around and they're not as stiff as, for example, accessories. And I wouldn't recommend sewing this on a normal machine, let alone on a household machine. I don't think that it has enough strength to handle this kind of leather or this kind of 3D object or project. So would not recommend this. I actually did this on my leather machine, and I still had a hard time doing this because it's not the specific type of leather machine that I would probably prefer using for this. But anyways, the project that we're doing today you can do on your normal machine because we're using very thin leather. This on the normal machine is probably around a 5 millimeter stitch, 4 to 5, but you will have to make a test, a stitching test. On your fashion material that you will end up using, you want to actually test the stitch length, the thread width, and stuff like this, the tension, because it's going to be very different to normal sewing thread, as you need to tighten the tension a lot more. At least on my machine, I have to make it very tight in order for this to look good. And then once you're happy with the results, once you have your machine set up, you can go ahead and start working with your leather. So I just did a test just to show you why it is so important to actually do a stitching test. So I saw this on my leather machine, you just saw it, and look at how horrible the results are. Because this material right here is simply too thin for the heavy-duty leather machine that I have right here. So I will have to sew this on my normal machine. That's obviously no problem. I have all the gear that I need for that on my machine, but basically what the problem right here is that the thread tension is way too tight, and then also on top of that, the foot itself is walking with the fabric. So it's a walking foot, and it is actually sewing on a arm. You probably saw that in the video. It's not a machine where you lay your stuff on the ground and then you sew. It has actually an arm sticking out where you put it on top, and then you can go ahead and sew. This is making it very easy for 3D objects like the bag that I showed you just now to get around and be able to sew in all of the crevices that there are. We're actually going to do a stitching test on my normal machine. Now there you go, you can see a vast difference between this and this. And I showed you before what the machine, the normal machine, does if you don't have the correct presser foot for leather or a material similar to leather like this one. If you do not have a Teflon foot or a leather pressing foot, then you might have a few difficulties top stitching or stitching on this side, the smooth side of your fabric. Because as you saw in the previous stitching, I just took them out right there, it's not really gliding under the machine as normal fabric does. It kind of sticks to the metal of the presser foot, the normal one, and stays there and wrinkles up a whole lot. And that's not what you want, obviously. You want nice and even stitching like this one. So I tried two different tensions right here, this one and this one. This one was the original one that I had already in place, which was fairly okay, but then I changed it to the tension that is a bit more, and you can actually tell that that's the right tension because in these stitches right here, you still see this small head of the upper thread coming out, and that is actually how you can tell if your tension is correct. If you don't see it anymore, then your tension is correct. I might even make it even tighter because you kind of can still see it sometimes in the stitches there. But this is a dead giveaway for the tension not being correct. If you can see the head of the upper thread on the other thread side, you want to make the tension tighter. So before we get into actually the sewing part of this video, let's hear a quick message from our sponsor, Skillshare. Have you ever had difficulties bringing your design ideas to life? Is draping a skill you'd like to dive into deeper? Then wait no longer. The sponsor of today's video, Skillshare, offers thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people on topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and more. It is the perfect website to explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. One class I found especially interesting and helpful is Garment Construction, Introduction to Draping, a Skillshare original taught by Anya Ayong-chi, Season 9 winner of Project Runway. Not only is she a professional in her field as a fashion designer of her own brand Anya, but her style of teaching is highly explanatory and easy to understand. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. And if you ask me, there is nothing better than getting better. Accomplishing growth is extremely satisfying, and Skillshare's online classes make it possible. Skillshare members get unlimited access to thousands of inspiring classes with hands-on projects and feedback from a community of millions. And the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description down below will actually get a free trial of the premium membership to explore your creativity. Thank you so much to Skillshare to sponsor today's video. So for the pants, I will actually be using my slim pant block that I did a couple of videos ago. I didn't change anything apart from how high the waistband lays. I actually took it down in the front 5 centimeters, in the side 4 centimeters, and in the back 3 centimeters, in case you were wondering, just because I think it's going to sit a little bit better, especially out of this leather material. And that's the only thing I did. I cut it where the folding lines are drawn into the pattern already. I cut them in half so the front pant leg and the back pant leg are 2 separate pieces now, because I wanted to have a seam in the very middle of the leg in front and back, and I will top stitch that all the way down. Actually, not all the way down in the front. I will make a slit in the front, and I will start the slit at about 15 centimeters higher than the hemline. In the back, I'm just going to stitch all the way down as usual. So there is actually a small change that we need to do for the front pant leg pattern, because the slit needs to have some sort of facing. Otherwise, you're going to see this ugly white color of the leather in the back, and I don't really want that, so I'm actually going to show you how to change the pattern of the front leg in order to have a facing that is already attached to the front pant pattern. So essentially what I did with the pattern piece right here, this is the side seam of the front pant leg, and this is the dividing seam where I want to place my slit end, which is going to end right here and then also into the hem, obviously. So what I did, I basically put a facing right here all the way down to the hem, also attached 4 centimeters of hem right there. So this line is going to be stitched together with the inner front leg until this notch. Then it's going to open up, and this piece right here is going to be folded over. It's exactly the same width as this piece right here. And this will actually be stitched into the side seam as well, so that it actually stays where it's supposed to be. So this width right here is exactly the same width as right here, plus 1 centimeter seam allowance. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do exactly the same for the inner front pant leg, and then gonna cut out the other remaining pattern pieces. So another thing that you want to do with leather beforehand, frankly, with all fabrics, to be honest. So you want to do a ironing test as well on how hot you can iron this type of material. So I have mine now on a pretty hot setting, and I just wanted to figure out if this is something this fabric can handle. Now I'm gonna go in and stay there for a little while longer, just to see, because I'm going to iron interfacing on this, just to see if it has any impact. And you can see that it's kind of bending, but it's not melting or anything. So this can handle some heat, which is a good thing, because I want to put interfacing on my material now in order to cut out all the remaining pieces for my opening in the front. I have all of this scrap material right here and all of my remaining pattern pieces. So a great help putting seams together with leather is actually having some clips like this around. Because if you pin anything on this fabric here, obviously you're going to see all the holes, and you don't want to have a bunch of holes around in your pants in the end. That's why I recommend to just use some clamps like this and hold your pieces together that way. So I'm actually going to take out my front pant pieces, and I have a pin right here just to mark where my opening ends. This one is in the seam allowance, so this is not going to show on the outside of the fabric, and I needed that in order to draw a dot right there to mark where my opening actually begins, because that's the side that I will be seeing on the sewing machine. And there you can actually see what I mean with you can see the pinholes. So do not use pins on your fabric unless it's for sure in the seam allowance and you don't see it on the outside. Okay, so these are my two pieces. I'm going to make sure that they line up, especially here. If the diagonal line right there doesn't really line up, that's not too big of a deal, because this dot right there must line up. So this right there is the seam allowance. So I can just put a pin right there and then pin it through the other layer of my fabric and then just stick it out on the other side of my seam allowance. So all of this is seam allowance, you won't see it. I'm actually going to go ahead and use the pins for this right there. I am going to make sure that this lines up correctly like this. And if you have any round bits like I do here, I'm just going to put every so often a clamp in there. And then you can go to the sewing machine. But before I do that, I actually want to go ahead and draw a line right here, my stitching line actually, because this is to me a bit unsure where I have to go. I'm gonna put 1 centimeter to the inside and actually draw a line right here so that I know that I have to sew up until this point. So now that everything is sewn together, this is how it's going to end up laying once everything is done. So with leather, what you actually want to do is minimize the bulk of the seam allowance as much as possible. So you would actually iron, or not really iron, that's the wrong word for it if you're talking about leather, but as we're working with fake leather right here, ironing is possible. So you would actually use a tool like this, which you would put along your seam with a bit of pressure to open up your seam allowances to lay like this. And with real leather, you would glue it with leather glue onto the piece so it stays and lays like this flat. And this is what you would actually do with real leather. I'm not going to do this with these pants because the material doesn't need this, and I was frankly also thinking about stitching the seam down. So I will actually make a 0.5 millimeter stitch all the way down here, and then also here where the slit opens up, it's going to help lay flat. What I am actually going to do is I'm going to try and iron my fabric right here, and I will be using a cloth to put on top of this because your iron will stick to this material. It's the same thing with the presser foot. If you have metal and this material, it's going to stick together. So you're actually going to want to have some sort of old cloth that you can just put on top of the seam, and you can feel through the cloth if your seam allowance is laying nice and flat. If you can't feel it, you can also do this kind of thing where you iron over the cloth and gradually move your cloth over the seam allowance where you can still see what's going on underneath. And you can see it's flattening out my material very, very well. So this might actually also be enough, but for the sake of the design, I will be putting some stitches on top of this. So I wanted to, just before I turn everything over, I wanted to show you how this piece is working together. Now this is already turned over. We're going to do something about the bulk in just a second. And this is how it should come out of the sewing machine. This is the facing, this is the hem that we turned over. We sew this line together and then we sew this line together. And it's going to look a bit awkward with this corner sticking out here, but this is exactly how it's supposed to turn out. So the first thing that I'm actually going to do in order to fold everything the way it should be is cut off this corner right here of my outer fabric, because that's just going to be in the way. And then I'm going to cut off this layer right here, it's the outer layer, and cut stairs like this. And this here, this small piece right there, I'm just going to cut down completely. And this is what it's going to end up looking. Now, before I turn anything over, I actually want to iron this piece flat. And now we're going to turn it over, help this edge come out, and you can see it's laying really nicely already. And now I can actually go ahead and top stitch this whole seam from the waist all the way down to the hemline. And I'm going to top stitch at 0.5 millimeters on both sides all the way down to the hem. So once done with sewing, you might have some sort of wrinkles. You can see some right here. That is from sewing the top stitches, and you can easily just iron them out. And they sort of disappear, as you can see right there. I actually went ahead and finished the back piece. I also sewed the center back together, and I don't really want to have stitching in the center back. So I'm going to show you an alternative to glue that actually works very, very well on this material as well, which is some hem tape. And you use this to basically also just glue down your seam allowance onto the piece right here. And now I went ahead and already did this on this side to try it out, and it worked out really, really well. So I'm going to go ahead and do it on this side as well. Now it's a little bit tricky because it is a curve and you can't do this without laying something on top. So you will have to kind of arrange it and then go with your iron on top of it. Kind of like go from the underside right here and check if your seam is aligning and your tape is good and so on. And this is what it's going to look like. So the next thing that we're actually going to do is the front closure. We're going to need a zipper, which I have right here. And this is actually going to be, you can slide your hand in on the right side of your pants, and this is going to be the overlap. That means the first thing that we'll need actually to close the front is our fly stitch cut pattern piece, which goes on the left side of your pants. So if you have it laying right in front of you, it would be the right side of your pants. And then obviously the fly itself that gets folded like this, which goes on the right side, in this case laying down the left side of your pants. You can go ahead and stitch this right sides together just until the notch. I also backstitched this piece as usual, and now I'm going to iron it to the wrong side of the fabric. I also went ahead and cut into the notch. I'm going to continue with the other side of the pants right here with the fly piece actually, because the underside will need to be stitched right here to turn over. So that is the diagonal side of the fly piece. This is what it ends up looking like. I actually went ahead and pressed some of the fusing tape that I used before on this as well. So this is fused to each other now so that it doesn't bulge up and stuff. And this is gonna go here. Now you want to sandwich your zipper in between there though. So you want to open this up, put it right here, probably sew once, and then put this on top and sew again. Once that is done, it should look something like this. I actually went ahead and top stitched this down as well so that it looks nice and neat. And I'm actually going to place the left side of the pants right on top here so that it covers the opening on top. And then I'm taking a clamp, because I can't pin anything, obviously. I'm actually going to clamp this together, go to the underside, and grab the zipper. I can go and pin stuff here because it's the underside. So I will pin the zipper to the fly stitch piece. Like this. I can loosen this now and actually get a little bit more space. And then I would want to take this piece and fold it to the back so that I have access only to the pieces that I want to stitch, which is only the fly piece and the zipper. So I'm going to go ahead and actually stitch the zipper on the left side into place as well. It's going to end up looking like this, and the only thing left, two things actually left, are closing the center front down here. And then if you'd like, which I won't do, stitch the fly piece on here. I won't do that though, because I don't think that it suits these pants. I'm actually only going to bar tack on two spots, which I'm going to show you as well. But now I'm going to sew this together. These are the bar tacks that I was referring to. There's one horizontal right there where the notch is, so right where the opening starts, and then one here, which is to hold the fly to the side right here so that everything lays correctly and nothing is like uncomfortable or whatever. And yeah, that's exactly how it looks like. And I can go ahead and actually attach the back pieces now to the front. So after working with this type of fabric, I actually do have to say that some sort of gluing agent, whatever it might be, if it's leather glue or if it's hem tape like this, is essential for this kind of fabric. I went ahead and actually glued down some pieces here in the center front as well, just because this here, for example, I glued down the fly just because it would just pop open. I also ironed the tape on the seam allowance right here, so on the fly piece, so this has a bit more strength as well. And now the front actually works out really, really well. And then I also went ahead and changed the general pattern. So I actually ended up changing a whole lot on the fit of these pants just because the fabric itself is so different to the fabric I used for the slim pants that I based this model on. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put a pattern together for this as well. So just in case you're interested, I will put a link down below and you can go ahead and get that for yourself, because I ended up taking the legs in by quite a bit, the outer as well as the inner leg seam, so it's not really the same pattern anymore. It is also not as high as I said in the very beginning. It's like a few centimeters in the front and back lower than the slim pant block. But I will put, as I just said, a link in the description down below and you can check it out if you're interested. And the next thing that I'll do is actually cut down the seam allowance here. That is now way too big. So I basically took out about 1 centimeter here, then around the knee area I took out about 2 centimeters, and then up here on the hip area, because this is stretchy material, I also took out 1 centimeter. So that's what I'm actually gonna do now. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Excuse that I am actually recording the outro on my phone, but for some reason my camera just has some difficulties and the microphone just wouldn't connect to the camera. Therefore, I'm recording this on the phone. I hope you don't mind. I quickly just wanted to say, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it so much, as well as giving this video a like if you liked it and leaving a comment down below. Maybe telling me what you'd like to see me do next. That would be very, very cool of you. Also, follow me on my socials if you haven't already. It's the same handle as here on YouTube. Links will be in the description box below. And thank you so much again for watching. We're gonna see each other next Sunday.